Okay, so we are working on lesson 4.4, equations of parallel lines. Okay, and these are the techs we'll be working with. We're going to start with A2 point E. Write the equation of a line that contains a given point and is parallel to a given line. Okay, so it says equations of parallel lines. The graph shows two parallel lines, line F and line G. Use the graph to answer questions A through C. A says write the equation of line F in slope-intercept form. So I know that slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. M is the slope, b is the y-intercept. Okay, and then they're asking me to write down the equation for line F, which is this one. Start with y equals. I know my y-intercept right off just from looking at the graph, because my y-intercept will be where x is 0, which is right here, which is 3. So I can start with 3. And then to find the slope, you can either select 2 points and use the formula for slope, but I'm able to see that is 1 over 2x, because 1, 2. But if you need the formula, you use 2 points. Next question says write the equation of line G in slope-intercept form. This is line G. Again, we continue to work with slope-intercept form, which is the form up here. So I'm going to start with y, and I'm going to start with my intercept because, again, I can tell right off by looking at the graph that my intercept is -1, because that's where x equals 0. And for slope, it's the same thing. You can use 2 points and use the slope formula, or you can just look at it. I mean, I can tell what the slope is by looking at it, which is 1 over 2x. Okay, the next question says compare the equations of line F and line G. So they're asking us to compare both of these equations. The first thing that I see is that they have the same slopes. Right? They both have the same slope. They have different y-intercepts. Okay? And both of them are positive. Positive lines. Okay, and those are the 3 things I can tell about the lines. Okay, so little definition. It says parallel lines in a coordinate plane are lines that are equal distance from each other at all positions and have the same slope. Parallel lines will never intersect. So they have the same slope and they will never intersect. So that's important for us to remember. The lines up here that we were working with, they both had the same slope and they did not intersect at all. Okay, so they never cross each other. They will never meet. Okay, so moving on, it says find the slope of a line parallel to the given equation. So it's asking for the slope. 2 lines have the same slope. That makes them parallel. So we start with y equals 5 over 2x plus 14. So since we know that they have to have the same slope, the slope for this line will be, for our new line, would be 5 over 2x. Because because they're only asking for the slope. Okay, and then for the next question, it says y equals 9 minus 2x, so our slope is negative 2x, and since the lines have to be parallel, the new line would have the same slope, which would be negative 2x. Number 3 is a little bit different because it's not given to us in slope-intercept form, so we have to do an additional step and change it to slope form, which is very simple to do. All we have to do is divide by 3 to have y by itself. So now the new equation will be y equals 4 divided by 3x minus 6. Since the slope for the original line is 4 over 3x, the slope for the new line will also be 4 over 3x. Because our slopes have to be the same. Okay? Again, we have to change it from this form to slope-intercept form because we are trying to get the slope. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. It says, use your knowledge of parallel lines to answer the following questions. Write the equation of a line that is parallel to line y equals negative 4x plus 10, and it has a y-intercept of negative 8. So they're asking us to write an equation for a line that will be parallel to the original equation that they gave us. The slope for the original equation is negative 4x. So the slope for my new equation will also be negative 4 times x. Okay, and it is telling us that it has a y-intercept of negative 8. So we use our slope-intercept form. We know that the y-intercept is our b. So we know y equals slope, which is negative 4x, and the y-intercept of negative 8 that the problem is telling us to use. So the new equation will be y equals negative 4 times x minus 8. So this equation is parallel to the original equation they gave us. Okay, and remember, same slope. Okay, the next problem, if you are able to get it, you can pause it and work it on your own, and then unpause it to see the answer, or you can work it as I work it. Okay, so for question number 5, it says write an equation of the line that is parallel to line 3 times y equals 2 times x minus 12 and crosses the x-axis at 6. So they didn't give me this equation in slope-intercept form, so I'm gonna go ahead and change it. And all I have to do to get this equation to slope-intercept form is divide both sides by 3. So my new equation will be y equals 2 over 3 times x minus 6. So now that I can clearly see my slope, I know my slope will be 2 over 3 times x. And I can start writing my new equation. So it says, so I have y equals 2 over 3x, and my y-intercept in this case will be plus 6. This is the y-axis at 6, and that my y-intercept at 6. So this is what the equation looks like. And both of them have the same slope. Okay. So the next section says, for questions 6 and 7, write the equation in slope-intercept form. Okay, so we continue with slope-intercept form. A line parallel to y equals 1 over 4 times x minus 9 and passes through point 8, comma 1. So my equation is y equals 1 over 4 times x minus 9. Since the slope is 1 over 4, I'm going to go ahead and use that slope to start my new equation, because that's all I know so far. So the other two questions we just worked on, they gave us the y-intercept, right? They give us the y-intercept here. But this question is not giving us the y-intercept. It's just giving us a point. So what we have to do to find the y-intercept is plug in my x and my y into the equation and solve for b, which is our y-intercept. So I'm going to go ahead and do 1 over 4 times 8, because 8 is my x, plus b, because that's my y-intercept that we're trying to solve, equals 1, because 1 is y up there. Just solve it like you normally would. And for b, I got -1, which is the same thing as your y-intercept. So you go ahead and complete your equation, and it should look like this. So we know that our slope has to be the same, so we use 1 over 4. That's our slope. And the y-intercept, since it wasn't given to us like previous times, we have to find it by plugging it in into our slope-intercept form. Okay, so if they give you 2 points, you plug those 2 points into your x and y and just solve for b. Whatever you get for b will be your y-intercept, okay? So for number 7, if you can do it on your own, pause the video, work it, and then unpause it once you have your answer to check it. If not, just work along. It says a line parallel to y equals -2 times 4x plus 11 and passes through the point 10 comma -5. So we have to write down a equation that is parallel to the one given. Since I know it has to be parallel, I know that the slope will be the same, which I'm going to start by writing the slope, which is -2.4 times x. Again, I am not provided with my y-intercept, so I have to plug in the point given into my equation to find out what the y-intercept is. And the equation should look like this after you plug in what you know. You know your 10 will be your x and your -5 will be your y, and then just solve it like you normally would. And you should end up with b equals 19. So you have a slope of -2.4 x and a y-intercept of 19. Okay, so this is your new equation that is parallel to the original equation. We have the same slope, and we solve for our y-intercept, okay, with the information given. Okay, so now we can go ahead and move into the next part of this. It says sketch a dotted line parallel to the x-axis and a solid line parallel to the y-axis on the graph. Then write an equation for the line next to your drawing. Okay, so this is my x-axis and this is my y-axis. I'm gonna go ahead and draw a parallel line to my x-axis first. I want to do 3 right here. Okay, so there's my parallel line to my x-axis, and it says a line parallel to the x-axis will be horizontal and have a slope of 0. Okay, and the way you write down your equation is you use your y equals however many units you are away from x. So in this case, we are 1, 2, 3 units away from x. So it will be y equals 3. The reason why you use y is because you can use any point on the graph. For example, let's do 1, and your y will be 3. No matter what point you get, your y will always be 3. Okay, so it stays consistent. And you're 3 units away from your x-axis, okay? So now we're going to go ahead and do our y, our line that is parallel to my y-axis. And I'm going to do it here. Okay, so it says a line parallel to the y-axis will be vertical and the slope will be undefined, okay? And the way you write down your equation is you do x equals however many units you are away from your from your y. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, you could grab any point on your line, and you'll have 4 will be your x in any point you grab in your line. In this case, if I do -2, it'll be 4, -2, and I can go and do a point up here, and it'll be 4, 4, 5. Your x will stay the same, okay? You're 4 units away from your y-intercept, your y-axis, 4 units away from your y-axis, and any point you get from this line, your x's will be 4. They will stay the same, okay? So remember, x-axis, you use your y equals however many units you are away from the x-axis, and for y-axis you use x and however many units you are away from your y-axis. Okay, it says use your knowledge of parallel lines to answer the following questions. Determine the slope of the line that is parallel to the x-axis and passes through the point 6, -8, and then write the equation of the line. Okay, so it says x-axis, and they give me a point. I'm going to go ahead and do a little graph here, just to be able to visualize it. So, if it's parallel to my x-axis, I know it'll be a horizontal line and will have a slope of 0. And if I go by graphing my point, which will be 6, -8, I will have my point somewhere around here. And I know my line has to be horizontal, so it'll be going across. And it's parallel to my x-axis. And we said that when we write down our equation for our parallel lines, when it's x-axis, we do y equals however many units we are away from our x-axis. In this case, we said it'll be 8 units because y is -8, so it'll be -8 units from our x-axis, okay? Natasha says that the line x equals 7 is parallel to the x-axis and has a slope of 0. Do you agree or disagree? Okay, so first, I'm going to go ahead and do a little graph here too. Graph my line. So if she's saying x equals 7, she's saying that we are 7 units away from y, from our y-axis. So I'm going to go ahead and pretend this is 7 right there. And it'll be 7, 0. Or 7, anything you want, okay? This is the line she's saying. Does it have a slope of 0? No, it has. My slope is undefined. Okay, so this is parallel to my y-axis. Okay, so I agree that it has, I disagree with her because it's not parallel to the x-axis. So parallel to y-axis, not x-axis. And the slope is undefined. Okay, if she has said y equals 7, then the rest of her statement would have been correct, but she didn't. Okay, so we cannot agree with her. Okay, the last two problems. Okay, it says write the equation of the line that is parallel to line H and passes through the point 2, 3. Okay, in this case they are not giving me an equation, so I have to go ahead and find the slope of line H first, so I can find the equation of the line that is parallel to line H. Okay, so first I'm going to choose 2 points in the line, and there's 2 ways to find the slope. One of the ways is by using the slope formula. Graph 2 points and then plug them in, solve, find your slope, or you can just see what the slope is, from the graph. I'm going to go ahead and use the slope formula just to get some practice. Because M is my slope. And for points, I'm going to use point -3 and 6 and -2 and 3. Okay, so it says my y2 will be 6, my y1 will be 3, x2 will be -2, and y1 will be -3. So for slope, I end up with -3. Okay, so now that I know the slope for my line H, I can go ahead and continue for my line. Continue to find the equation for the next line. I know that the slopes have to be the same, so I'm going to go ahead and start writing my equation with what I know, which is the slope. I know my slope is -3, and that's all I know. Okay, but they provided me with an important information, which they said it passes through the point 2, 3. So I'm going to go ahead and use that point and plug it into my formula and solve for my y-intercept. So I'm going to go ahead and do 3 times 2 plus b equals 3. X and y, okay? Remember, when they give you the point, you just plug it into the formula that you have and then just solve. So I got that my y-intercept will be 9. So now that I have a slope and a y-intercept, I can go ahead and complete my equation, which will be y equals -3x plus 9. Okay, so simple. Just remember, if they don't give you a y-intercept, use the points, plug them into the formula, and find your y-intercept, and the slope stays the same. Okay, the next one says line P contains points, and line M contains these points. Determine if line P and M are parallel. Explain your explain your reasoning. So since they give me two sets of points, I'm going to go ahead and use my formula to find slope and see if they have the same slope. If they don't have the same slope, they obviously are not going to be parallel. So I'm going to go ahead and work through it. I'm going to write my formula here one more time. And I'm going to do line P first. So for line P, I got a slope of -1/3. Now I'm gonna go ahead and find the slope for line M, and see if we end up with the same slope or a different one. Okay, same formula, which is the formula of slope, so I'm not gonna rewrite it. And sure enough, I got the same slope for both of them. So I can say that the lines are parallel because they have the same slope, okay? Okay, so this is it for this lesson. Make sure you go back to It's Learning and complete your worksheet.